Hey guys, welcome to the Revive Your Health podcast. Our mission is to renew hope, rebuild health, and revive your God-given potential through the 5 essentials of health. We're just super excited to bring cutting-edge science and information on how to make you and your family more healthy. Make sure you share this episode or this podcast with somebody who's close to you, far from health. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome back to the first episode of our podcast. I'm Dr. Shannon, one of the doctors over at Revive Chiropractic, and I'm joined by Dr. Ethan and Dr. Brandon.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Amazing introduction.
Absolutely.
Your husband would say that.
Yeah, that's true.
Not because I have to.
Yeah.
No, definitely not. But all right. So, Dr. Brandon, this is our first podcast talking all about Revive and kind of what we do. So, the three of us are all chiropractors. And so I kind of just want to hear it from you. So you were the one that started Revive. Tell me a little bit about the mission and, why did you start Revive? What do you hope to accomplish?
Yeah. Well, my wife, first off, thank you. It's an honor to, have you guys. And I've always wanted to do a podcast with, a group of doctors that are really on a similar mission. So just super thankful and blessed to be able to share this information with you guys. So my wife and I met in chiropractic school in 2007. And we opened right out of school, opened Revive Chiropractic. And our mission was very simple, to renew hope, rebuild health, and revive people's God-given potential through the 5 essentials. So, revive people's God-given potential. We believe that there's a potential in everybody. And I think that from a chiropractic, standpoint is that we just believe in that innate ability. We believe in that there's a power in the body. We don't believe that we need more outside in, pills, potions, and lotions. We need to work with that inner being, and that's what we do at Revive. We're a corrective care, lifestyle, family chiropractic office, from day-old babies to, a 90-year-old patients. And really, when it comes down to it, obviously that's our mission statement that we have on the wall. But the reality is that it's to rip people out of a broken system, which we'll get into that in a little bit. And really, I think that fuel started because I actually, and I'll kind of get into my story a little bit, but my story was I didn't know chiropractic. I actually had a horrible experience with chiropractic. I wrestled Division I. I was a Division I wrestler for the Ohio Bobcats. Woke up one morning, couldn't feel my fingers. Cortisone shots into the front of my neck with needles about that long, and chewing ibuprofen and Oxycontin. And when your entire world is based around perishable crowns and gold medals, you'll do pretty much whatever you need to do in order to be able to get to what was paying for my school. End up having neck surgery. They put a titanium plate in my neck to fuse my spine together at like C5, C6. I thought my life was over. I felt better for a little bit, and all of a sudden, about a month later, tingling going down the other side of my arm, debilitating migraine headaches. And long story short, a corrective care chiropractor came into my life and radically transformed everything from how I view my health, how I view my body, and its ability to heal. And really, what we do in our office to not to make chiropractic better, because chiropractic's already really awesome, but like nutrition and exercise and detoxification and all these different types of things that the body needs in the world we're living in today. So my wife just happened to be down there as I was going to school, and I always joke around that's the only time that somebody from Michigan and Ohio would ever come together and get married is in a professional school. So we survived. And so she had a scoliosis. She had all kinds of digestive system issues, and she had to take NyQuil every night just to go to sleep, and all that's gone. And so that's kind of why we, through all the chaos and through all the craziness of 4 boys and having a farm and all these different things that have gone on over the last 4 years, like that's why we get up every morning, so we can have people, educate people to have the same experience that we've had. So, Dr. Ethan, why don't you kind of share your story a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. So, And before we begin with that, Dr. Brandon, you mentioned corrective care. So, there's symptom-based care and corrective care. Can you explain for our viewers kind of the difference between what we do with corrective care and then symptom-based chiropractic care? I think it's important to distinguish those two.
Yeah, I think, especially in the world of chiropractic, most people, unfortunately, when they think of chiropractic, they think, hey, I'm going to go to the chiropractor. Or they look at a 2.5 Men episode, right? Yeah. And then it's like, or they go to YouTube and they these big people putting pop. Well, like the mics on there, and it's just like people are
turn the volume all the way.
Yeah,
up.
Turn the volume up, and it's like, oh my god, I'm addicted to that. Like even my pastor, like I love my pastor, but he's like, hey, can you give me the ring dinger? I'm like, I don't even know what the ring dinger is, but anyway, there's a difference between corrective care, specific scientific chiropractic care, and really just a symptom-based, like quick fix kind of thing. And, we focus on corrective care. And what I mean by that is that there's a normal position for the spine to be in. God designed it that way. Science just supports that. And our goal in our office is try to bring that spine back to that position and keep it there as long as possible. And then also give you some corrective lifestyle advice to make sure that we minimize any kind of issues that may affect that. Because unfortunately, I was telling somebody the other day that 100 years ago, people went to a chiropractor, and once a month or once a year, they rode their horse there. They ate their vegetables.
It's crazy.
They just didn't have the stress that we have. They didn't even know what a cell phone or what it was. They maybe had 1 cup of coffee, not 8, and they didn't need that kind of stuff. But now we need corrective care, and an example of that would be, a dentist versus an orthodontist. Right, so most chiropractors that you would go to today are dentists. Yep. Right, you go in, you get your spine adjusted, and it's great, and it feels great, and it's like, hey, my insurance paid for 12 of those over the course of the year, so I'll see you next month or whenever I hurt again. An orthodontist puts braces on your teeth, rehabs, restabilizes them, corrects the structure, and then what do you have to do when you go home? You wear a retainer. And if you don't wear that retainer, then what happens to your teeth? Everything shifts back.
Some are teeth. Some are here. Some are there.
And then your mom and dad get really upset because they got to pay for Invisalign, right? The spine, right? The spine's same. So that's the difference between corrective and symptomatic care. And I don't blame the world, because that's what our medical system is. It's a reactive, symptomatic type of thing. So automatically, unfortunately, our profession likes to go with the flow. And so most people are like, well, I have to come see you multiple times a week and do these exercises, and I've got to eat vegetables, and I've got to squat. These are things that you should be doing to correct the cause of your health, not just your spine, but man, taking cholesterol and blood pressure and these medications, it's not going to correct the cause. It's going to cover things up and make you feel better. But then people die of heart attacks all the time that felt great that day, So anyway,
yeah,
it's good.
All right, I'll get into it a little bit here. So, I played baseball at Otterbein University, right in Westerville, Ohio, and so I played there. I was playing for a while, and I started to get sick quite often, getting sick probably 5 or 6 times a year, and so. Ended up having really bad lung infections, didn't know what was going on. And this is right around the time I was going to school to become a physical therapist. So, I thought that's just kind of what you do, right? Rehab-wise, musculoskeletal-wise. You become a physical therapist, and you kind of help people with physical therapy. And there's great physical therapists out there. I want to preface that before I go through this. But, my big mindset shift when I was in school to doing chiropractic. I'd always been treated with chiropractic care for elbow injuries with baseball, right? So it was just my elbow. I wasn't even getting my spine adjusted. So there was a moment, though, where those lung infections I talk about became more and more frequent. And so kind of just didn't know what was going on, to the point where it was pneumonia after pneumonia infection, going to the hospital, getting imaging done, countless x-rays, CT scans, showing enlarged lymph nodes, like an autoimmune type process. So ended up getting a bronchoscopy done, which is just where they shove a tube down your throat, and and then they take out some of your lung tissue and they take a look. So that ended up being clear. There's no like cancer or anything. That's what they were thinking initially. But really that stuff did not sort of calm down, and it eventually was diagnosed as sarcoidosis, but that didn't necessarily calm down until I started getting adjusted, until I started seeking out chiropractic care.
Oh, that's cool, man.
So that's my rundown as far as what got me into chiropractic care. Then once I found out I could become a chiropractor, here I am. So that's kind of, and I really haven't had an episode since. So
was that like I'm just curious because it's funny, in chiropractic, it's like you don't go to chiropractic school, and then you go down there and you talk to all the people that you meet on the first. They're like, hey, why are you becoming a chiropractor? It's because I had some type of a life changing.
Yeah. And it paused my baseball career completely. Yeah, so it's like you're a collegiate athlete. I mean, what does that do to a player that can't play? Because they're sick all the time. So,
but it's always like some like big lifestyle change. Like, my mom had cancer, and then I started going to get adjusted, and then, or I had neck surgery and then I couldn't feel my fingers. Now all my headaches are gone. Like, it's funny because there's like this massive light. Very rarely do you ever go down to chiropractic school and you hear someone say, I just woke up one day and I thought I want to adjust spines for a living. It's like, no, it doesn't really happen that way. Like, there's this, I was living in the medical model. I was taking all kinds of different things for my lungs, and then all of a sudden it was like I went to a chiropractor. I had no idea what was going on, and now all of a sudden I'm not sick. Yeah. And then now it changed my life.
I know.
That's cool, man.
Yep. So then that took me down to Palmer College of Chiropractic down in Florida, where I met this wonderful woman here. She's more wonderful than I am. That's what she would say. But
I don't know about that. You would say that, not me.
We met down there, kind of our first year into school.
Yeah.
And shared a good experience down there. Graduated together. Made our way back here to Columbus, and the rest is history. So it's been great ever since.
It's cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
It brought us all here together. So it's just fantastic.
We'll talk about how married couples do in practice together later.
Oh boy,
it's not that bad. It's really not bad. I like it. But anyways, back to you, Dr. Ethan. Actually,
Sure.
Just a couple questions as far as like, how do you feel like chiropractic, I guess, can physiologically impact people that might have autoimmune disorders? And you can chime in on that too. It's just, I feel like when I think of chiropractic, or most of our patients come in and they talk about chiropractic, it's like, well, I don't have any pain, so like, what do I need this for? Like, why does my baby need to be here, or why does my kid need to be here? Sure.
You're talking to somebody who their lungs were completely changed.
Exactly.
So. Yeah, I mean, so I'll kind of talk through that a little bit. So we'll get into the weeds here. So I actually, 1 in 100 Caucasian people have the HLA-B27 gene. So for the viewers out there, the HLA-B27 gene is a gene that can cause arthritic conditions or cause like ankylosing spondylitis and a bunch of weird things. But so I have that gene, and so that just basically what that means is it just causes your immune system to be overactive. And so that started kind of having that, and then not living the proper lifestyle, in my mind, kind of led to the cascade of events where I was constantly getting sick, had all those massive granulomas in my lungs, which is basically just, scar tissue in your lungs, essentially. And so, getting adjusted, getting my nervous system regulated, really helped kind of turn the volume dial down on that, and gave me the best chance to express kind of my highest level of function. And I haven't had an issue since. Wow. So, it really just, everybody has a variable response to being adjusted. But there's some really cool things when you give your body the opportunity to heal and you are adjusted, that you wouldn't experience otherwise. So,
yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, I feel like you put that really well. So
yeah, it's just, again, everybody has a different response. It's not just about hearing the pop and moving bones, but, when you see those type of effects in somebody, not just myself, we've seen this in patients. We treat, how many people do we treat a day? It's like we have these constant interactions and see this, and the average person that hasn't had chiropractic care doesn't understand it on that level. But when we can show them that, when we can demonstrate that, even through our own experience, that's a very powerful thing.
Well, I would say most people that come into our clinic specifically, they come in for a musculoskeletal issue,
yes.
Right? And then and a weekend they're like, I'm sleeping better. Yeah. And then, hey, I went to my doctor. They took my blood pressure. My blood pressure is like 10 points lower. And my kids haven't been sick this fall. So I think people, they get an adjustment, and it's like they're looking at it for like, man, my back hurts. But there's a physiological response. You've got these natural, B cell, T cell, kind of natural T killer cells that when you're adjusted, science says will literally go throughout your body and act like these Navy SEALs, like munching on these bacteria and viruses. But the common world will not say, hey, go to a chiropractor, get an adjustment to improve your immunity, and lay off of sugar and eat exercise. What they'll say is, hey, go take this, eat a donut, and then pray that we're good.
Well, Doc, they'll say, where's the research?
Yeah. So
You'll get where's the research.
But like, I mean, I guess, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but the point is that
I will say, but just to interrupt you here, I will say that there's so many variable responses to what you can have under chiropractic care. It's nearly, and there should be more research done, and that comes down to funding, and that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Western medicine versus chiropractic, and that's again the whole rabbit hole. We're not going to go down on this episode, but everybody has a variable response. So to research each and every response, it's basically like individual case studies per person.
Yeah,
everybody has a different response. That's the amazing thing about the body's ability to heal itself. I mean, it really is.
When you put innate intelligence, which you have no control over what the body is going to do when you release something, which is very weird for medicine, because medicine's like, what does that mean? Like
if it's A to B,
if it's a linear model, like we work in a very like quantum model where it's like every single organ in your body, like your tonsils, your gallbladder, all of those things need to be there for a purpose. Medicine says, well, they don't work, so I'll take them out, and then I'll just replace it with something. That's not how that works. So it's very easy to do research and to kind of track a linear model versus like, well, you were adjusted and then you started going to the bathroom again. Mm-hmm. How do we chase after that? So pretty cool stuff. Yeah. Dr. Shannon, we've talked a lot.
Guys like to talk.
Yeah, you're good at that. But that's okay.
We don't get to, there's all kinds of women in the office.
I know.
We don't get to hang out a lot.
I know.
We'll talk about that.
You got a really cool story.
Yeah.
And you're always like, so like, just, it's okay. But like, you have a very powerful story. So why did you become a chiropractor?
That's a great question. So I actually felt like I was really lucky. I grew up in a pretty healthy household. Like my mom was really all about kind of holistic healing. So I felt like I had kind of had a leg up.
So you never had a Twinkie as a kid?
Not necessarily. My dad existed. He was definitely like sneaking that in there. But
you were just the weird chiropractic kid at school.
Kind of.
Like, you grew up like you didn't have vaccines, you didn't have this. It was a natural birth, and I'm like, huh? Like. So anyway.
Yeah, so
that wasn't us.
Yeah. So I had a little leg up with that, and I feel like blessed in that way. So I kind of had a decent idea on what health was. But it didn't really matter to me because it like never really affected me as a kid. Like I never had too many issues growing up. Maybe things that is still behind the scenes, like somewhat kind of normal. And I feel like I'll put that in quotes because there's so many things that aren't normal that now that I'm a chiropractor, I'm like, oh, okay. But it really wasn't until like I was in high school, I was a runner, and I injured myself just from like training. And I actually had a fracture of the growth plate in my hip, and I went to a chiropractor, and it was an okay experience. Like I didn't even have anything life changing really at that point. Did you go
to the chiropractor? So were you there? Like when you had the fracture, were you diagnosed with a fracture before you had the chiropractic care, or did you have chiropractic care before?
No, actually, I mean, I wasn't. They initially thought it was just like a muscle strain, and then I got X-rays, and that's whenever they figured it out. But
you were referred to a chiropractor.
Yeah, and he was great. But again, it wasn't really anything life changing at that time, and I know I like really struggled because it got in the way of my sport that I loved a lot, and it kind of just sent me down this like spiral of, gosh, what do I do? And I feel like I couldn't focus on really anything, and I started struggling with anxiety and like disordered eating into, I wouldn't say necessarily into college, but it throughout that time. So like at the end of my high school career, I ended up actually going to the Cleveland Clinic, and they put me on like a ton of medications, like anxiety medications and depression medications and all that stuff. And I never really understood health at that point either. Like, even though I had all of the advantages at first of like, oh, here's how to eat healthy and work out and like go to the chiropractor and get adjusted, like it just never really crossed my mind of how important that was and how do I incorporate that into my life.
So for somebody that doesn't know, for our viewers that don't know chiropractic and they're dealing with something where they feel kind of condemned to a problem, like you were in that moment, talk about kind of where your mindset was then versus where your mindset is now. I guess. So that intrigues me quite a bit.
Yeah. So, I got out of the hospital and then, started my first year in college and actually wanted to go into like dietetics because I was like, oh, maybe I'll go into that and it'll be helpful for people like what I struggled with. And again, it was one of those things where really it was a route leading to that medical model that was just ultimately going to patch up the problem and send you on your way. It's crazy like what they do in those like clinics that are just so, I wouldn't say necessarily unhelpful completely. Like there's some positive aspects to it, but it never really helped with your overall health.
It's all leads back to just putting a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah, exactly. So in college, I went to a chiropractor and he kind of asked way more like health history questions and talked overarchingly like what do you want your life to look like? What do you want your health to look like in 5 years? And actually that is what he asked me in the first visit. He's like, where do you want your health to be in 5 years? Like, what do you want to do in the next 5 years? I was like, oh, wow, I don't know. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, versus putting you on a table with a mic and doing just an adjustment sitting on your way.
Yeah.
So, because that's what I want people to understand. I mean, there's chiropractors out there that are amazing, fantastic. I would consider us among that bunch. But then there's some out there that kind of give the profession a bad name, like with any profession. But that's what gets shown a lot. So I really want to preface that. So it sounds like you were at somebody who cared and was really good at what they did.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there was just so many other aspects instead of just adjustments and stuff like at that time, and really kind of broke things down for me. And I was like, oh, wow. And he introduced me to kind of like working out. And so I got into that. And it was just ultimately a whole lifestyle change. And that's where I feel like things kind of really picked up for me. And he's like, you can do this. Like, you can change people's lives too. And like, you would be a great chiropractor. And I was like, oh, like, you're right. And I really did feel like I could take control of my health. And now everything's been great. So that's what sent me to chiropractic school.
Yeah. And that was the beginning of your fitness career too.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something too that people that have not been involved with fitness or even other lifestyle changes and they're just coming to a chiropractor to get an adjustment to get their back cracked. That could be the beginning of their any lifestyle change.
Yeah.
That could be the beginning of their fitness journey. That could be the beginning of their weight loss journey. Their just anything under that realm. So it's not just it's getting adjusted. It's taking care of yourself. It's expressing yourself to the highest level. But it's also starting to begin those new habits.
Yeah.
Well, like whenever you shared your story, like the word that comes to my mind is empowerment.
Yeah.
Like there was a difference between getting adjusted in high school and, hey, laying down and, hey, I was referred to you by somebody, and so there's a injury with my hip, and so I'll focus in on your hip. And then in college, you're broken, like, because you were a runner. Yeah. And it's almost like when you take somebody out of baseball or you take somebody out of running or you take somebody out of wrestling, and that's kind of really everything that we've built our identity around. And then you put fear and negativity and you're going to have this forever and you're going to be on these medications forever, which is kind of, what happens. Yeah. Then you have somebody that comes in and says, wait a minute, like your body's really strong. Yeah. Like your body was not born sick and weak. Like this is not something that you can't beat. You're like, oh my gosh, like, can you please give me? Yeah. And that that empowerment is what, and then obviously, people think, well, is it just because he made me feel good? No, I that's the first step is that mindset shift of like, my body can heal.
Yeah.
And then there's the physiological response of the chiropractic adjustment that actually does fix the cause of the problem. And then there's the empowerment, oh my gosh, my hip feels good, so now I'll start to run again. Exactly. And now I'll be fit and jacked, which is always good, as a chiropractor. So that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. How about we do this? I think obviously the health stories, right? I mean, and I think it's important for listeners to understand that behind every, I think in our office, and I think any doctor, there's a story. There's probably
everybody can have a health story.
Yeah,
this is not just, this is for everyone. This is for all of our viewers.
Yeah.
Everybody can heal and have their own story. I mean, really, that's the goal.
And so I think with that being said, like, because everybody can heal, I think it's important for us to talk about like what is healing.
Yeah.
Like what is healing, and then where does it come from? And then I think it's important for us to understand and maybe contrast. If I had to pick where to go, if I really want to heal, do I want to be in our traditional medical system? How good of a job is it really doing that? So anyway, anybody want to start off with just, hey, what is health? Can anybody give me the best definition?
Oh, man. I would say, I mean, there's a couple, but I think health ultimately comes down to overall function of the body and performing at like the highest capacity that you can, is what I would really say.
Yeah, healing's kind of, you can think of it like a frequency. So you can have kind of a narrow band frequency, or you can have a real big frequency. It's like if you have a cut on your hand, does it take a month to heal? Does it not want to scab up? Is it just kind of turning into an ulcer? Or, is it healing in a couple days, you get a nice scab and then it just flakes off and you're done. So I think healing is just your body's ability to be able to tackle the things you deal with day to day, whether that's an injury, a mental, physical, or emotional injury, and being able to kind of turn the volume up on that and get it done quickly and efficiently. And if your body's stressed with all these different toxins, right, it's going to impair that timing process to take longer, if it even occurs at all. And when it doesn't occur, that's when that healing process does not occur, that's when people seek out the drugs and medicine, to try to cover up that Band-Aid or get that little extra push. When in reality, they just need to get adjusted, and we can fix it that way. So I would say healing is your body's ability to kind of repair itself, kind of laissez-faire, hands off. It can just do it on its own,
That's
right? And a lot of people most people have dysfunction in the healing process.
Yeah, so I guess long story short is that everybody can heal and will heal. However, the person who doesn't heal as quickly just has more interference.
Yeah.
And our job as a chiropractor is not to heal you, because we're not the healer, even though I think some people in our profession would say, I did that.
Yeah.
And I would say, no, you didn't. You just removed the interference. The body did it.
Correct.
And that's where the magic happens. And that's why it's also really hard to kind of maybe scientifically put together in words what it is that we do. It's like, how did the cancer fall off that person? So Dorland's Medical Dictionary, 1937, states this, right? Health is a complete state of mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional well-being.
Correct.
And not just merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So when I read that definition, and the reason why I can state that is because I've educated patients twice a week for 12 years, and I say that exact same thing.
Just practice it every night before you go to bed.
Yeah, right.
It's the
My
mantra.
wife is weird. She's like, "Are you doing a health talk in the shower?" I'm like, "That's when I practice my health talk." So, yeah, it's like I'm doing subluxation research in the shower as I'm whatever. So basically, what that means is that just because you don't have a disease, right? And I think I want to be clear on this. Like, just because you don't have heart disease, just because you don't have cancer, just because you don't have a headache, and just because your belly doesn't hurt doesn't mean you're healthy. It just means that you don't have the symptoms of that process. And I think this is where, as Americans, we are very, very sick, is because we wait until our car blows up before we go do a maintenance. We would, listen, you're a car guy. I'm
true.
So I like cars. Like, if I had to pick a car, I would, I know which car I'd pick out.
What car would you pick up?
I would pick up. I'm a Lambo guy, so I would definitely get a Lamborghini. No problems.
Plenty of kinds of Lambos. What kind of Lambo?
Aventador,
Gallardo.
I'm not. I don't know all of them, but it would be like almost like a burnt orange, kind of like.
I like it.
Yeah, with like the flat black. And yeah, it'd be. And there's nowhere that I can drive that car where I live. It's just not. And you can't put a car seat in a Lambo. It's just not a. Anyway, so the point is here is that if I had that car, then I wouldn't be like, well, wait a minute here. I'm going to wait till it blows up, and then I'm going to take it to the mechanic and I'm going to get something done on it. And that's the way that we think of our bodies. Yeah. It's like, well, my back blows out, and now I'll go to a chiropractor, or now I'll go to an orthopedist. So everything in our culture, my blood pressure is through the roof. So now I'll go to the doctor and I'll do something about it.
It's a reactive mindset.
It's a very reactive. And so health is not reactive. Health is proactive. And just because you don't have a disease or a symptom doesn't mean that you can't benefit from chiropractic, because and this is where I get very passionate about what I do and what we do, and why I think that our office exists. Because people would say, how long has that person been in your office? 10 years. And they're like, well, why would they do that? So they don't get disease. So they don't get sick. Like that's where the rubber meets the road. The healthiest people in the world don't think to themselves, I want to see how long I can wait until my car blows up. And then when I go to the mechanic, I'm going to have them put duct tape over the oil light. I'm going to have them put duct tape on the tires. And then I'm going to have them my frame's bent, but I'll just have them keep changing the tires. You should fire your mechanic. Yeah. But that's what our culture does when they go to the primary care, they go to the orthopedist. And I'm not even blaming them, because that's the only tool that they have in their tool belt is treat that. Mm-hmm. And I think we all knows what happens when we treat symptoms and we don't find the root cause of the problem.
Yeah.
So
that analogy reminds me of, you guys seen the movie Matilda?
I have
seen that movie.
Yes.
Have you seen the scene? And I know our viewers have seen this too. The scene where Matilda's father, they're in the car shop and they're putting the bumpers on.
Yep.
They say, "Yeah, we don't weld these on. We just glue them on.
Yeah.
They have the super glue and they just slap it on there.
It takes the gun and he reels back the thing and it puts the sawdust in there to quiet the engine.
Yeah.
My kids are on a Matilda kick right now, so
that's so funny.
Fresh in my mind.
Good movie, real good movie.
So how would that relate? I mean, that's good. I know that's funny, but the reality, it's extremely serious, because it's exactly what's happening right now in our traditional medical system. Like, you can go into a doctor and you can be 50 pounds overweight, and they'll not say, well, let's put you on a nutritional program. Let's get you working out, but I'll put you on Ozempic. Yeah. And then you can have nocturnal diarrhea. So basically, let's turn back the miles. Let's put some sawdust in the tank, and let's just glue the bumper on and pray that everything works out okay.
Yeah.
I guess let's have a little bit of dialogue with that, because I know that's funny, but at the same time, there are people out there, and we see them every single day walk into our office on 5 or 10 different medications, and I'm thinking to myself, that's not health, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen lists that go up to 30 medications.
Oh. Well, the average American's on 7 to 11 different medications.
Yeah, I know. And even to kind of jump back to the Ozempic thing, my gosh, that drug in general is a little.
The physiological effect of Ozempic, what at its baseline was it doing?
Oh, it increases our insulin levels and
essentially appetite suppressant, right?
Yeah.
So it just makes you not hungry.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
just makes you not hungry.
It leads to sarcopenia, which is muscle loss, and the reality is that over 40% of Americans are obese right now. And I was actually kind of looking into this a little bit, because we were talking about this the other day. Even if you lose the weight and you have muscle loss associated with your weight loss journey, which, I mean, to a degree can happen no matter what, but it's so extreme on Ozempic, it doesn't matter, because sarcopenic obesity is a thing that you've ever heard of people say, they're skinny fat.
Skinny fat.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
I look great with my clothes on, but when I put a bikini on, I have
bingo wings.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 30% body fat, but I'm skinny.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you've lost all that weight, but if you're dealing with sarcopenic obesity, technically, you're still going to have the same health markers as an obese person, even though you've lost all that weight. So
because of your body composition,
exactly,
because of your visceral fat.
Because you've never you haven't really done the work, and that's why it's that shortcut. The people are like, oh, well, it doesn't matter because I lost all the weight. You haven't really built anything up to protect your body against everything else.
You're not just
super
losing
frustrating.
Fat. You're losing muscle. You're losing all types of tissue. It's not just you're not just losing fat when you take Ozempic and you're losing weight. You're literally being starved into a state of you're in nutrient deficits, huge deficits, and that's not healthy. And that's not, along with the physiological effects of just how hard it is on your body. you know, and all these unknowns. I mean, the weight and the number is such a big deal for people, and it should be, but you should, you know, do a body recomposition where you start to exercise, you build muscle, lose some fat, you know, and kind of recomp rather than, hey, let's just melt all my muscle and fat off my body completely. That's not health.
Well, you know, I think it goes back to just, you know, man, doing this for 12 years, and I think of just the mindset that people are in. When you have been brainwashed by a system that says your body was born weak, your body is just always going to be overweight. I mean, obesity is genetic now, right? So, I mean, you know, alcoholism is genetic. No, I mean, it's a choice, right? I mean, and here's the problem is that we all have a choice. And going back to your story about being empowered, I think the doctor of the future or the doctor of cause, which is what we are, is more about empowering people's mind, you know, to know that, hey, that's easy. Like taking that drug is easy. Putting your kid on ADHD medication it would be the easy thing to do. But you have to understand that if you don't find the root cause as to why it is that your body is doing that, so I use this in the office, and we use this. I call it the function chart, right? So, you know, God created our body to function as close to 100% as possible. And I'll be honest with you, like I don't necessarily believe that as a human today, that even if we live the 5 essentials, which we'll kind of get into those here in a second, of like, here, okay, what are some things that we can be doing to kind of, you know, get to the root cause? I don't think that it's physically possible in the world we live in today for someone to be at 100%. But I think that the goal should be that we should want to do everything that we possibly can to get there, right? If you read almost every single orthopedic text, literature, you know, which we spend a lot of time in chiropractic school and physiology and neuroanatomy, like even way more than the medical profession.
100 more hours than a medical doctor.
100 more hours in that. And people would say, wow, how is that? It's because that's the only tool we have in our tool belt. Like we don't get to chemically alter somebody by giving them a shot and say, hey, that's going to chemically alter. We have to work with physiology, and therefore we have to understand it. And so at about 60% dysfunction, so after 40% damage, like to your body, is when that individual actually begin to feel that first symptom, right? So 40%, so this is the individual, right? You're in college, and then all of a sudden, boom, I start getting sick all the time. So, but that probably started when you were 12.
Yeah, it's a ledge. It builds up, and then you have the ledge.
Right, and then you have the ledge, and then that ledge is, boom, I have high cholesterol. Boom, I have cancer. Boom, I have depression and anxiety. But here's what's very interesting, and I think, you know, if you're watching this, I just want you to ask yourself the question, and I ask every patient this question. If I don't find the root cause as to why that symptom exists, and I give you a pill or a shot or I cover that up, is that going to drive you closer to 0% disease and early death, or is that going to drive you closer to 100% function? And nobody can argue with us that if you don't find the root cause and you keep covering it up, you are going to go slower and slower towards 100%. Or towards zero. And then somebody might argue and say, well, I'm on 10 different medications. I feel great. But you're not functioning great because you're numbing everything. And
you're forcing physiology into a place it should not.
Right. And there's only so much that you can do to force physiology until the body says, you know what, I'm done. And so, you know, that's kind of the, you know, that whole thing. And that's why people come in our office at 40% or 60%. And then it's like, hey, I want to be healed like now. And I'm like, wait a minute. It took 30 years to get here. Yeah. It took 10 years to get here. Healing takes time and repetition. True health takes time and repetition. You guys want to try to transition into like, you know, we function on, or we talk about the 5 essentials, right? So we talk, you know, our story, you know, we kind of talked about, you know, just the dumpster of healthcare that we have.
Yeah.
And it's actually really sad because not because I've got really good friends of mine that are medical doctors, and I'm not trying to bash that because
there's great medical doctors.
No, there is, but it's the tools that they have in their tool belt, and the pharmaceutical companies have literally bought medical schools and what they can teach, and you really can't even teach like true cause-driven medicine that was 100 years ago, and so. how do we, like in our office, like we've got this model, and the reality is I didn't come up with this model. I think these are just really basic principles that everybody should do, and they're backed up by science and literature. I mean, you personally could probably give me 50 articles about how your mindset can change your physiology. So, there are 5 essentials that we teach in our clinic, and we teach them in this order specifically because number 1 is mindset. Right. So as a man thinketh, so is he. And I would just say that if you don't believe that you can heal and you believe that your body was born sick and weak and you need more meds, like we have to change that and we have to empower you.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
We have to
get out of that passive coping.
No.
You don't have to live with what you don't have to identify with the problem that you currently have. You can tackle that and you can actually heal from that. That's a real bad mindset a lot of people are in. See it every day.
And you can become a victim to that.
Yes.
And you could actually and you can actually get on that train, and then it's like, well, now just like help me. And I think
because it's easy.
And
because
people
it's
don't like it when they come into our office and we don't feed into that train and we say, listen, no.
Yeah.
Like you, that's not who you are.
Guys, to hold your hand. Well, I say this, but no, actually, no.
It's like let me. Can I please pull you back? And that's a painful process.
It is.
And then there's chiropractic, right? There's the nervous system and changing neurology, because the nervous system controls it. And then there's nutrition. Like we've got to put good food in the body. Let that food be thy medicine, right? I mean, if you don't fuel your body well, bad things happen. Movement, exercise physiology. And then there's detoxification. I mean, we just live in a toxic world, from makeup to pharmaceuticals to the air that we breathe, or even if we're not drinking organic coffee. I mean, it's the most highly sprayed plant on the planet. So, I guess maybe to kind of dive into that a little bit, like why are the 5 essentials so important, and why is it important, I think, for us, and what separates us from other chiropractors that, hey, you come in and you lay down on the table, you get adjusted, and that's awesome. And I think that we should hit on the importance of neurology and why that's the foundation of what we do. But I would just love to, to get your guys' thoughts on that, because that's just a big piece. I mean, we talked about how bad medicine is and the state of the world, but what is it about our clinic that becomes the answer, I think, for the sickness and suffering in our town?
Yeah, I mean, with the 5 essentials, I think, so when you look at somebody, like if we were just to go to somebody who knows nothing about chiropractic, they don't know us at all, and we ask them, you have condition X, Y, or Z, how are you going to heal from this? What's your plan of attack, right? So the 5 essentials are just a driven plan of attack to be able to heal. I mean, essentially, that's what it is. It's a plan of attack. It's to equip somebody or empower them with the ability to be able to say, oh, this is tangible. This is something I can actually do. Okay, so, and again, it starts with the mindset, right? So one of the 5 essentials, mindset, it's just being able to kind of get there first. And then, the rest is just kind of a process. It's just one thing after the next. It really gives people just a like a skeleton of a way to be able to, no pun intended, to be able to kind of work step to step to be able to heal and to change their lives. Otherwise, they're just, it's just a dream. They're just floating around aimlessly. This is a way to really hone in.
Well, I mean, most people come into our clinic and they're just floating around. And then when they happen to float into an office where they're given a medication and they don't know the difference. Yeah. You're kind of doing all the intake stuff, most of it. So you hear a lot of these stories. I feel like you would probably say most people I'm like, I just need a plan. Yeah,
and I think that kind of comes with really guiding people because they don't know. And, maybe even they take that first step, they make an appointment to come to the office and really say, maybe this is it. I'm going to try do something good for myself. And then ultimately, maybe that's the mindset piece that they're starting. That's their thing. They're starting, but maybe they start to get chiropractic care, which is amazing. I think something that I run into, and I feel like the 3 of us all run into, is maybe someone takes that first step into their health journey, but they don't really have other tools, and they're like, well, why isn't this the end all be all? And then I'm like, oh, well, because you're missing nutrition, exercise, supplementation, and detoxifying your environment. And it's great that you decided to take that initial step, but there's all-encompassing, like, more things to this. Yeah. I think the 5 essentials really kind of grasps overarchingly what you can do, because you can do one thing. It's never going to be as helpful as doing everything together.
Well, I always think it's funny, when we go to chiropractic school, what are the 3 T's?
Oh,
Yeah.
thoughts, traumas, and
toxins.
toxins. Yeah.
What causes subluxation? Which subluxation, is basically where, the spine or your nervous system is interfered with, causing dis-ease, which isn't disease, right? Dis-ease is basically interference to the system that creates healing. So when it just rolled off of our tongue, right? Because I remember in chiropractic school, it was like, what is the cause of subluxation? Thoughts, traumas, and toxins.
Yep.
So you walk into a chiropractic office, and people are basically burdened with all 3 of those things. Yeah. And to be honest with you, I would even probably say thoughts more than trauma.
Yeah.
And thoughts causing different parts of trauma, but they're not addressed. They are like, here, we're going to adjust you 50 times, but we're not going to. But you're allowed to drink Diet Coke, eat McDonald's, be sedentary. We don't really care what kind of supplementation you're taking. Like, we're just living in a world where people have to have that guidance. And I think it's, from the chiropractic standpoint, if you're a chiropractor and you're listening, to empower you, like, we have the greatest principle known to mankind, and I don't think there's any other profession in the world that understands physiology at the depth at which we understand it from a vitalistic quantum model that can empower people to do that more than us. Because someone would say, well, I'll just let the dietitian do that. And I'm like, well, they're coming from a medical model. They're giving somebody nutrition that's going to treat their obesity, when we're teaching people how to eat for life. And then all of a sudden, it's like I'm 20 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of these dietitians are recommending Ozempic.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I mean,
Again.
it's
Dietitian recommending Ozempic.
Yeah. No, I mean, because like I've said this to other patients that are like, I'm going to go get my, my bachelor's here. I'm like, you know what? You got to watch it, because the governing body that controls that particular degree, or how you're going. I was a strength conditioning coach. I graduated OU. Transitioned. Before I transitioned into chiropractic, I was a strength conditioning coach. And so there's a thing called the Certified Strength Conditioning Specialist, the CSCS. And it's like the gold standard when it comes to strength conditioning. If you have that certificate, then you're like the Mac Daddy. But it hasn't changed in 30 years. I believe, and I could be wrong, but chocolate milk is still recommended to give to athletes after a workout. And I'm like, it means nothing. Like, if we're not going to, get with the science and get with the, what's really happening, like, it doesn't matter what kind of certification you have, because, we're 30 years behind. So anyway, I'm on a tangent. But anyway, so anything else with the 5 essentials?
I don't know. I feel like that kind of explained a lot of it. But yeah, it's not just one thing. So even if you just worked out and didn't do anything else, it's not going to make you super healthy. We see people in the office that are like in great shape and take care of themselves in all other aspects. And if they're not getting chiropractic care, or they're not really taking control of
2 hours of sleep.
Yeah, getting 2 hours of sleep or something like that. So I think that really overarchingly was like, you need all of it, not just one thing.
Essentials for most people, everybody's going to lack in a different area. Yeah. I feel like, so it's not like it's not cookie cutter. Everybody starts at point A and ends at point B. I might have my diet dialed in, but then I'm not detoxifying properly, right? Or my mindset sucks. Yeah. Dr. Shannon might, her mindset might be awesome, but then might lack in another area. So it's really just, everybody is at a different starting point. It's just a multifactorial approach, and we kind of increase those areas and improve those areas as we see fit per person. It's an equitable thing. Everybody's a little bit different. Health is different for every single person and looks different, and we have to approach it that way, not just lay on the table and get adjusted. So
yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to ask?
Man, I think everybody kind of covered it as far as the 5 essentials and what that looks like.
You can ask what it's going to be like to be married to me.
I could ask that.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
it's going to be great.
Just so you guys know, Dr. Shannon and Dr. Ethan, they're going to be, what is it, this weekend?
Yeah, this weekend.
So depending upon when the podcast comes out, like Dr. Shannon and Dr. Ethan, they're going to be married soon. They're Pittsburgh. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then going to go
Yep.
to, where are you guys going on your honeymoon?
We're going to Mexico.
Mexico.
So, yeah.
So
I'm
have you
excited.
guys ever been to Mexico?
No,
No, I've
that'll
never
be
been
our
out
first
of the
time.
country, so-
No, he hasn't like
So
traveled
you,
for.
you got to get your passport.
Yeah.
This is it. I was locked up in chiropractic school for a while and got out. Now I can finally actually do things that
Yeah.
are, outside of the country a little bit.
Well, what's really interesting is that I don't think that has anything to do with chiropractic school because I was the same way. I think it's just because I'm from Perry, Tucky, you're from Grove, Tucky,
It's true.
and we just don't get out. And so when I
No.
married,
That's fair.
we don't.
We don't travel a whole lot. We go on
very
vacation.
fair.
We drive everywhere. When I married
So
Sam,
true.
same exact thing. We went on our honeymoon. I had to go get my passport. She's like, "You never been out of the country?" She's been everywhere. So,
Yeah.
here, a little tip though. I guess because I've been married to a chiropractor for, it'll be almost 14 years. Best decision I ever made. I couldn't imagine coming home after like preaching what we preach and then having McDonald's there. Like I couldn't imagine like not being on the same page with my wife or my spouse about like shots and how we're going to deliver our babies and how and whether or not we're going to get our kids adjusted. Like so I just want you guys to understand that it's not easy working with your spouse, but you're going to find people that are going to come in. They're like, my husband's not on the same page. My wife. It's a blessing to be on the same page, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a nugget though. You never let somebody adjust you that also subluxates you, right? So I'll tell you, one of the hardest people in the world to adjust is my wife. I'm a very good adjuster, but I don't know what it is, but it's just really difficult. So set on that, obviously on your honeymoon, adjust each other, but don't be afraid to have other people, remove interference. So
We'll have to teach one of the workers around there.
Yeah, right. Something like that.
Get over here.
we'll just chemically alter your subluxation with an extra Mai Tai or something.
Yeah.
So,
That's
anyway.
not bad advice.
Nothing
I
an
think that's
adjustment can't
good.
take care of.
Yeah, awesome.
But yeah.
Well, yeah. So, and end us out, Tyson.
Oh,
Tyson?
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, you know what? Thank you guys for joining us on our first episode of the podcast. So looking forward, we're going to be talking about a lot of other things. So, more on just the principle of chiropractic, other health issues that people might be struggling with and really want to hear about, autoimmune disorders, things like that. So please join us on our next episodes. We'll be talking about
Comment
everything.
below. What do you want to see? Let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love to hear that. Also,
Awesome.
make sure you guys go to social media, Instagram, or just maybe even share this. If you're listening on YouTube, tag a friend, share this with somebody who's close to you, far from health. Like you just never really know. Like we shared our stories, right? I mean, I've done different things like this before, and somebody listens to it and they're like, "Oh wow, I'm going to go to chiropractic school," or I've been struggling with autoimmune conditions. Maybe if it's not here, in Lewis Center, kind of Columbus area, but you've got people that are struggling with your health. Comment below, reach out to us, and we'll make sure that you and your family or anybody that gets taken care of the 5 Essentials way. So
Awesome.
awesome.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Thank you.